Hi, I'm Brooke. I'm a coach here at MeterX. And today I'm really excited to be speaking with Maria, I find really inspiring uh, because of her own personal fitness. Um, so I want to thank you, Maria, for coming on and talking to us about your carnivore experience and about your fitness program.
Thank you so much, Brooke, for having me on. I love the platform, and I've really enjoyed everything that you guys are doing on the platform and all the interviews. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, our pleasure. Um, so we'll just make it easy. We'll just start right away with the carnivore diet and what brought you to it.
So what brought me to it is actually my ketogenic diet. And I started that somewhere around, I think actually on Thanksgiving of 2015. And I had some really great results with the ketogenic diet. Had a lot of resolutions of various health issues, but it just didn't get me as far as I had expected it to. And so then just through following some people on Instagram and reading certain books, I've discovered the carnivore diet. And then I started following both ShawnBaker and Paul Saladino. And at first, to be honest with you, the idea of just, avoiding plants sounded completely insane to me. But it was intriguing, so I kept listening. And I heard so many stories, so many success stories with the carnivore diet that I decided to give it a try. Basically, I knew that, nothing bad was going to happen. If I try it for a month, my head's not going to fall off. I'm already, fat adapted. And so I knew that I was going to be fine. And I was just blown away by the results. And so I decided to keep going with the carnivore diet. So it's been a little bit over a year now.
Well, then I'm curious, were the results that you were blown away with, were they immediate? Did you feel that immediately?
I would say probably within a week, I was starting to feel big differences in how I feel. So for example, the hunger, even on a ketogenic diet, even with all the fat that I was eating, I feel like I had this constant craving for something. And, deep down inside, I knew it wasn't a caloric craving because I was eating plenty of calories, but I just kept feeling like something is missing. And so when I switched to carnivore, that completely disappeared. So, I would sit down to a plate of meat and cheese or, whatever, or like eggs and bacon in the morning without any plants whatsoever. And there was like a definite feeling of fullness, of like, I don't need to eat anymore. And I am definitely not hungry anymore. And that feeling stayed with me for a long time. So that was like an immediate response to the carnivore diet. But some of the other things that happened was an improvement in my sleep. I've struggled with insomnia for a really long time. And when I started ketogenic diet, I feel like a little bit of that did resolve, but it wasn't until I started the carnivore diet that I really feel like I started sleeping like a baby. So, to suffer with insomnia for so many years and then suddenly see a resolution without any medication was just crazy to me. And I used to take magnesium before bed to help me sleep. I stopped doing that. I don't need magnesium anymore. I just don't really need to take anything.
Did you have any difficulties with that switch? Like, a lot of people suffer with cramp, muscle cramps, things like that at night.
I didn't have any of those things because I was already so fat adapted. I was in the ketogenic diet for a number of years before switching to carnivore. I'm trying to think if I had any physical issues. Well, there was, some gut issues at first as I was switching over. But nope, I don't remember any cramping whatsoever. Great. And, I'm accustomed to eating a lot of salt. I need to eat a lot of salt because I sweat a lot and I feel really weak if I don't add salt to all my food, and sometimes I even drink salt water.
So you already had that protocol.
Yeah. So it made it easier for sure.
What were some of it sounds like you were feeling satisfied and kind of solidly nutritionally supported with those meals, and your sleep was better.
Right. Yep.
Was your training better?
What's that?
Did your training differ?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My strength increased like almost immediately. It's weird. It's weird because on the ketogenic diet, like I had a lot of energy, and I was never, weak by any stretch of the imagination, but there's definitely a shift that I can't really even explain in my strength. I feel like the ketogenic diet was something that like would allow me to run for a really long time, whereas the carnivore diet is now, giving me the strength to lift a lot more weight than I used to. And I feel like I'm able to do a power sport without any issues, whereas I think if I stuck to a ketogenic diet, I think this power sport might have been more difficult.
How about your recovery? Like in recovery,
I have no problems with recovery. I mean, I went away to visit my family in Michigan for 11 days. And prior to visiting family, I was trying to cram all of my training days. I didn't want to miss any training days because I wasn't going to go to the gym in Michigan. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing this 5 days straight, Olympic weightlifting 5 days straight for a 40-year-old woman might be a little bit, challenging. It wasn't. I was so surprised. I recovered very, very well. I had no issues whatsoever. In fact, I actually felt better from the increase in activity.
That's awesome. So have you continued with more days since you've been back? I'm just curious. I know that's recent, but
the minute I got back, the next day I was back at the gym and I just did 4 training days in a row. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. And today I went for a long hike with a friend. So really it's like 5 training days in a row at this point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you eat? What's your regular diet like?
So I'm switching things up a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm going to turn off my beeping. Switching things up a little bit. I used to not eat breakfast, and I would fast for breakfast, or I would just have coffee and some heavy cream from my favorite farm, Buttercup Farm. But I really felt like I was doing myself a disservice by fasting too much. So I have been able to change my eating habits. So I do eat breakfast every morning now, unless I'm just flying out the door and I just don't have time. But on most days I eat breakfast. So I'll have about 4 to 6 eggs and a little bit of meat, whether it's bacon or ground pork, maybe a little bit of cheese, and coffee and water. And that breakfast will usually take me until late afternoon. So sometimes I will eat some kind of a light lunch, but most times I don't. I just go straight to dinner.
So I'm curious. So when you wake up and are you hungry for breakfast, or are you just feeling like you really want to nourish yourself for your day ahead?
It's hard to say. While I was away visiting my family, I was very, very hungry every morning. I don't know why. When I'm at home, I'm not as hungry. I don't know what it is, if it's like the excitement of, not working and just like being off, or if it's an actual physical hunger. I don't know. But whether I'm hungry or not in the morning, I try to eat protein.
Okay.
Because I don't feel like it's a good idea to cram that much protein into one meal. Right.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, whether this was a decision you're making, so you're fueled for the day and you weren't waiting for hunger to, that you overtake you, or that you really need to eat.
Yeah, I would say it's more of a decision rather than going with my hunger signals. Now, some might say maybe that's not a good idea, but I need to get that protein in to preserve my muscle mass and to help me train. So, it's not like.
Have you felt a difference with that new protocol? of
Yes, I have.
you
I
have?
have. Not just in my physical performance, but also in my like the cognitive performance. I'm a little bit more focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so before you probably didn't eat like so many of us, you would intermittent fast and didn't eat till
Yeah.
like 1 in the afternoon or something,
Yeah.
or noon. Uh-huh.
Exactly. Yeah. Or even later.
Yeah,
Um,
even later.
yeah. Well, this is the tricky part about the carnivore diet is that, I could probably easily like not eat for 24 hours. And in fact, I've done that many times. The hunger signals really change. So I could lose a lot of weight. And I see why this diet is so beneficial if somebody's trying to lose weight. My goal is performance, physical and cognitive performance. I don't have any weight to lose. I'm actually concerned about keeping my muscle mass and keeping my bones dense. So
Yeah, I think
that's
that you bring up some really good points. It is so easy to, I mean, it's kind of easy to skip breakfast even if you aren't on a carnivore
right.
diet, just because
Yeah.
people's lives are busy in the morning and I don't always feel hungry, even
Yeah.
throughout my whole life with
Right.
breakfast. And then with the carnivore diet, it's really easy to skip
Mhm.
breakfast and not go on till, like you said, eat all day, OMAD or whatever. But yeah, but it is real. It seems I think it's really important to, like you said, to sort of tune into what your goals are. Yeah,
Mhm.
and put yourself on your own protocol. So it sounds like you've seen some really positive results with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually a little bit surprised that by eating breakfast, I end up losing even more weight. Now, I'm assuming it's fat loss because I do look even leaner now. Um,
So
it's
maybe do you?
bizarre, isn't it?
So I suspect, or do you think that it's just helping keeping your metabolism up? Because there are times when I do OMAD or whatever that I feel sometimes a little. I mean, there's a great feeling when you're deep into ketosis and you get lots of energy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I feel like I have to actually eat less because like my metabolism has slowed down. So I'm wondering if maybe including that breakfast meal keeps your metabolism up.
Perhaps, but I wouldn't say that I necessarily end up eating more calories. I'm just like breaking up the protein, so I'm not trying to cram it all into one meal. I think calorically, I'm probably not. It's probably like the same.
Yeah.
You're asking a lot of really excellent questions. I'm not even sure how to answer. Um,
Well, it is really interesting. I'm really interested to hear how your process with tweaking the diet, because I think that, like you said, with carnivores is it's easy not to go for long periods of time. So it's really important to stay sort of cognizant about what your body needs. And there's so many tweaks we can do,
yeah.
um, like adding more fat, less fat. What's that like for you with your fat to protein ratio?
Well, let's just start by, I'm going to start by saying that I don't count things, except I have a rough idea of how much protein is in my food. Like, because I've been doing this for so long, I can just kind of look at a slab of meat or, like I know how much protein is in a slice of bacon and in an egg. So I just kind of do a quick count. And I try to at least like eat 1 gram of protein or more per pound of my body weight. And currently I'm at 162 pounds, so it's a lot of protein. Um, I I don't worry about ratios. Um, I add enough fat for the food to taste a certain way. I mean, it's so intuitive for me that I can't even tell you what my ratios are. Right. So in the morning when I have my eggs and bacon, I might actually add a tablespoon of the raw butter on top of the eggs, because raw butter is just so full of vitamins. And then when I eat burgers, especially if they're grass finished burgers, they're very lean. I mean, they're so lean, I can't like, it just doesn't taste very good to me. So I put a lot of butter on my burgers, but I don't count.
Hmm.
I don't count anything, and I have maintained, this lean body weight, body mass for, well over a year without counting anything whatsoever. Even when I was on the ketogenic diet, I can't say that I did a lot of counting. I mean, I definitely made sure that my carbs are very low, but I didn't worry about ratios ever.
Nice. Do you, so I know you use butter. Do you use other dairy?
I do. Not a ton, but I do enjoy a little bit of cheese here and there. And I really like kefir from Buttercup. That stuff is really potent. I mean, it's like so fermented.
Yeah, and kefir is one of those fermented dairy products, unlike yogurt, that if it's raw, it stays raw because they don't have to heat it to make kefir.
Right. Again, very, it's supposed to be really good for your immune function, for your gut microbiome. I mean, it's delicious. I add a little bit of stevia to it because it has such a bite. And the kefir I'm talking about is not the kefir you're going to get at the grocery store. I mean, raw kefir from Buttercup Farm is it's like rocket fuel. So I do that. And I do eat a little bit of yogurt from them as well. What else?
Do they make cheese?
They do. Yep. So I do eat a little bit of their cheese. I'm not afraid of conventional dairy. It just sometimes my stomach gets a little bit upset from if I eat conventional yogurt, I do get a little bit of an upset stomach, so I try to stay away from it. Here's an interesting experiment that I performed on myself. I learned a long time ago that I have a hard time drinking regular milk. And so I thought, well, maybe I have lactose intolerance or a dairy allergy or something. And then I drank raw milk from Buttercup Farm, and that's the A2 milk. Had no problems. No problems at all.
Nice. Very nice.
That's very interesting. Now, I don't drink milk, every day. It's like an occasional treat because it is high in carbs,
But you use their cream. You said you drink coffee. Is that right?
Yeah, I use their heavy cream quite a bit.
Yeah. Yum.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you eat organ meat, liver?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I'm with Paul Saladino on this one. I really believe in the nose to tail carnivore. I really do. I think that there's so much discussion about this in the carnivore space. I don't think we have to be so polarized about it.
No.
I think organ meats are a good thing. If you hate them, there's people are putting them into pills now that they're so easy to get that I don't see a reason not to make them a part of my diet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a true superfood, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I'm also, I'm a PA, I'm a physician assistant, I work in functional medicine, and, patients come to me with their long lists of vitamins, and I kind of jokingly say, beef liver is the ultimate multivitamin. You could just eat that instead of bags of vitamins.
Oh, that's great. So you can you can influence some of your patients, and it sounds like you do.
I try to. Yeah. And, my patients are awesome. They listen and they consider things, and some do make changes. Yeah.
Do they ask you about your diet, your carnivore diet?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love watching their expression.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a little jar of pate is like a delicious vitamin pill for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've even recently started eating a lot more gelatinous foods like oxtail and trotters to get that gelatin. I don't know if you've experimented with making those kinds of dishes.
I've made oxtail. I love oxtail. I also make bone broth all the time. I just got another, we went to Polyface Farm to get some more meat, and I got the bones. That's like the best bone broth on earth.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
And I don't add anything to it. It's just, I boil the bones first, and then I put them in the pressure cooker, and it just salt and maybe a bay leaf, and that's it. I don't muck it up with anything else.
Yeah. You don't put the splash of vinegar in there?
I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the pressure cooker is great. It really cuts it down. It cuts the time down.
Yeah. And I just drink it cold. I don't care. If I'm, especially in the morning, like if I'm in a hurry, I mean, that could be my breakfast. some bone broth just to like coat my stomach with something.
Yeah, or you just eat it gelatin, like the
Yeah.
gel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of refreshing. I mean, I can just see people going, ew, you know. I guess
It's good cold, like in gelatinous form. Sometimes I put a splash of Thai fish sauce on it because it
oh
has
wow. I didn't even
a
think of that.
briny taste and
Yeah.
salty. Yeah, I like it too, that way.
I think what people don't realize is that when you start eating differently, your microbiome actually changes and you start craving those foods. So whatever you keep putting into your body, that's the stuff you end up craving.
It's remarkable, isn't it, to be craving meat all the time when you're hungry? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I was fat adapted when I started craving a stick of butter. Like, you know, when I was hungry, I no longer wanted anything sugary. I wanted to drink fat.
That's great.
Yeah.
So with your training, with your weight, with your Olympic weight training,
Mhm.
you haven't found any kind of need to include carbohydrate, or it doesn't sound like that has been an issue for you.
No, my coach encouraged me to try some carbohydrates because he thought that maybe it would give me a little bit of an edge. And what ended up happening is I would eat some honey before, you know, maybe like an hour before working out, or I tried mango. Like I experimented with various things, or a little bit of carrot or something sugary. And I just end up feeling groggy.
Uh-huh.
So I can't say that I've used it successfully as a performance tool. Um, sometimes I include carbohydrates in the evening. So let's say I have some yogurt and maybe I'll throw like a couple of berries in there just for the flavor. And I'll drizzle like a tablespoon of honey. It helps me sleep better. So in that way, my performance improves. I don't think it's from the actual like glucose. I think it's from just getting better sleep or something.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what that pathway is, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Metabolism is such a complicated thing, you know. I just know that every single time I tried to ingest glucose before a workout, I was worse off. My focus goes down the toilet. I feel groggy, sleepy, weak. I mean, maybe it has something to do with the fact that I'm so fat adapted that I actually function better when I'm burning fat than when I'm burning sugar.
yeah. So maybe just the flipping the switch just sort of throws it off or something. I don't know. That's
Maybe
interesting.
because flipping that switch actually, you know, I think if I was to go back to eating like a carbohydrate-based diet, I think that probably takes a week or two. So to flip that switch back and forth like that, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Mhm.
You know, and when you're fat adapted, your glycogen stores do get repleted. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Finney's FASTER study on athletes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if my glycogen stores are repleted, then what's the point of me eating glucose?
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah,
make
I mean,
sense?
you made the point of noticing that there's a times that it maybe improves a relaxation state while you're sleeping. So, and that in itself is helps your performance the next day or in
Right.
general. Yeah.
Right.
So that, I mean, yeah, I mean, really, because there's no real dogma about about that kind of thing. You know, in a meat-based diet, it's still a meat-based diet, and
Right.
if there's tweaks you need to do, some people not eating dairy, some people eating dairy, depending on their goals, it's all good. So it's really great that I think people share those kinds of flexibilities.
Right. Yeah, and I remember reading one of Dr. Finney's books. Maybe it was an article. I don't remember what it was, but you know, he talks about this shifting of the metabolism back and forth. You know, we talk about like metabolic flexibility, like it's like as if it's something attainable, and you can just like switch your metabolism back and forth very easily. And I'm not convinced that you can do that very quickly. So he talks about this. He says it's probably not a good idea to shift your gears constantly back and forth like that. you might be doing more damage than good.
It
It's
seems
one
like
thing.
it would be an added stressor.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what it felt like to me when I was trying to do that. I mean, shifting gears seasonally might make a little bit more sense. Like, maybe eating some berries and honey and stuff in the summer, and then in the winter you go ketogenic. Like that makes more sense to me than going back and forth from several times a week. I think raising my carbohydrates a tiny bit, let's say going to like 50, 60, 70 grams of carbs here and there is one thing. But to like sit down to a giant fruit bowl with honey on top might not be such a good idea.
Yeah, the pancake house. Yeah, no, absolutely. And in with animal food, there are carbohydrates. Liver certainly has carbohydrate, dairy,
Eggs
scallops.
do. Eggs have carbohydrates. People don't know that. I think there's 1 carbohydrate per egg. I learned that from Maria Emmerich.
How many? What'd you say? How many?
1 gram per egg.
1 gram.
1 gram of carb per egg, approximately.
Have you ever worked or worked around with eating raw meat or raw eggs?
Well, we seem to undercook burgers like pretty much every time.
Yeah.
So my burgers are pretty much raw on the inside. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I eat raw egg yolks pretty frequently. I get eggs either from Buttercup Farm or from my friend's farm. So I trust the source. But even if a store-bought egg, I'm not afraid of eating a raw egg yolk. I mean, that's what's in mayo.
Yeah, exactly.
People are so afraid of raw eggs. I'm like, well, you eat mayo, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, they're protected in that shell. Yeah. So you eat raw egg yolks, and I don't know if we got past breakfast because you explained that your breakfast could be bacon and eggs and maybe some meat and coffee, and then dinner would probably, or lunch or dinner, or maybe it's just dinner. What would that normally be? I mean, varies.
So dinner, it's because we have so much meat from the farm in our freezers. It's like we just kind of reach in and see what's at the top.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of red meat. Every once in a while I switch it up and I have some salmon. Sometimes we have pork chops because we also bought a pig. So my plate is mostly meat of some sort, whether it's red meat or pork or salmon or some kind of seafood. I don't eat seafood very often, because it's expensive and it's hard to get quality seafood, and our oceans are so polluted that I feel more comfortable eating beef than I feel eating fish. And then so sometimes I have cheese on my burgers, and maybe I'll have a pickle. Like I've had a tomato here and there because I went to visit my mom and she had tomatoes that were growing in her garden. So I'm not going to miss out on that. But it's like a tiny, tiny amount. It's an accoutrement. Whereas like in the past, when I was in the ketogenic diet, the plate of vegetables was the main course. Exactly.
Yeah, like eating those 8 cups of cruciferous vegetables every day.
Oh my God, I did that.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, why am I so bloated? I'm not eating any grain. Why am I so bloated? Right? Because I just like everybody else, I was brainwashed into this fiber is good and more fiber is better idea.
Sprouts and broccoli and kale.
Yeah. And so what ended up happening to me when I was eating like that is I was like even more bloated than I was when I was eating grain. I was clearly malnourished because I wasn't eating enough protein. And well, of course I'm going to be hungry all the time.
Yes.
And I was actually more fatigued.
Yeah. Yeah. Bloated and hungry.
Bloated, hungry, fatigued. And at this point I was already in a ketogenic diet, right? I already experienced the high from the ketones, I'm like, I'm supposed to be full of energy and feeling good. And instead I was just, a mess.
Yeah, it's an interesting pathway, but
so many people promote this.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, well, we all have been hoodwinked to think that vegetables really are the king of nutrition, and the more the
Yeah,
better. And I certainly did that. I was plant-based, not vegetarian, but plant-based.
right.
And there's even been times I've been vegetarian in my life, but
Me
how,
too.
plants are so virtuous, and brown rice and vegetables it's such a virtuous thing. And
Right.
it took me a while a long while, like a lifetime, to get that brown rice and brown sugar are it's kind of
The
the
same
same.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when did you start lifting?
Well, I started lifting when I was 11.
11.
Yeah. Uh, my cousin, who I miss very much, he's not with us anymore, but we were very close. He was like more like my brother than my cousin. And, he always called me his little monkey because I was always like climbing trees, and he would like flip me over and do all this crazy stuff with me. He was like 8 years older than me. And he took me to the gym and he taught me how to properly lift weights.
Wow.
And I was hooked ever since. So I didn't actually start really lifting weights until I was like, he introduced me to it, but then I started lifting weights when I was about 13 or 14. A friend of mine who was a little bit older was able to take me to the gym under his membership. And then,
Were you the only little 13-year-old girl in the gym?
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
yeah, it didn't bother me. I just loved it right away. It made me feel so good. It made me feel powerful. It gave me like a sense of, I guess maybe a sense of control in my life. It did a lot of things for me emotionally, not just physically.
Did you participate in group sports?
Yes, I did. I did about 4 years of Taekwondo. I never competed because our school, like, they weren't into competition because martial art, it's an art, and they were kind of trying to keep it that way. But I also wrestled in high school.
Ah.
So I spent a couple of years wrestling as a freshman and sophomore. I was the first and only girl on my wrestling team. And I actually have a funny story about how that started. I was on the school bus, and this kid, Jimmy, Jimmy was a jerk, and he liked to pick on me. And I was running cross country at that time, and I remember having a conversation with him about sports. I said, "Oh, cross country is such a tough sport. It's just like we're running in the heat, and it was just so." I'm not built to be a runner. I think that was part of the problem. So I was having a really hard time. And Jimmy said to me, "Cross country, oh, that's for sissies. You wouldn't last a day in a wrestling team."
Wow.
So yeah, the following week I joined the wrestling team, and I stayed on for 2 years, and I placed in tournaments, and I got very strong and very big.
That's awesome. Did you ever get to kick his ass?
No, because he wasn't in my weight class, and honestly, it wouldn't be a fair fight. He was quite a bit bigger than me. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great gauntlet thrown, challenge accepted, big growing moment. I mean, that really kind of shows that we need those kind of social hormesis to get our big and strong on.
But honestly, I didn't stay because I was trying to prove anything. I stayed because I fell in love with the sport, and I had an incredible coach and incredible teammates, and they were so supportive, and we had so much fun. That's why I stayed.
Well, if you were the only girl on the wrestling team, so who did you wrestle with?
The boys.
So it was co-ed, yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Now they have girls wrestling teams in some high schools and colleges, but back then it was a little bit unusual.
That's great. Do you have sisters?
I do. I have a sister. Yeah, she's 8 years older. We don't have a lot in well, we have a little bit in common. We're both we both play piano, but she's more of the professional musician. She teaches piano, and she's tiny.
Great. Love that.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story, and you're a wrestler. So you don't do. When did you stop wrestling? Or
11th grade. So that was like a combination of just me, I think, kind of turning a little bit more into a woman, maybe some, hormonal changes, but some other things that happened that made me quit the wrestling team was that I was starting to experience like really depressive symptoms, and I developed some issues with like mood, insomnia, just various things that it took me years to overcome these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what would like to say about that is, I was vegetarian in high school.
Yeah.
I think the only meat I might have eaten was occasional little pepperoni if it was stuck to a pizza, or like occasional a can of tuna, and I think it really messed me up.
Yeah.
Looking back on those days, I was a vegetarian for probably about 6 years.
And when did you stop? Oh, and how did you stop that?
I think I was 21 when I went back to eating meat, and that's because a friend of mine who was also vegetarian for a long time started eating steak, and he had a lot of influence on me, and so I went back to eating meat.
So you started eating red meat. You didn't even just eat a little bit of chicken. You started eating red meat.
I just ate whatever was around. I didn't make a conscious decision to eat red meat. I was just, I just stopped being a vegetarian.
And did you put it together that you felt a lot better, or?
No, because there were other issues. Yeah. So there's a lot of history between then and now.
Growing up female.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. What are your goals now with lifting, with your sports?
Well, I signed up for a local competition that's actually going to be held at our gym, which is wonderful. I get to compete, where I feel comfortable. I would love to, compete at a national level. I think it's going to take some time for me to get there. First of all, I started Olympic weightlifting at almost 40. And it's a really tough sport, and it requires a tremendous amount of work, because it's not really all about strength. It's very technical. And I came into the sport with injuries and mobility issues that I have to work through. So I want to take it pretty far. I just don't want to jinx myself right now.
With weightlifting, is the drills and the work and the work practice, is it lifting weight, or is there other drills that are involved, like stretching or different kinds of things that are involved to strengthen weightlifting?
Absolutely. I guess it depends on what kind of program you're in and what your coach thinks you need. So every time when I'm at the Olympic weightlifting gym, I'm following a program, and the Olympic lifts, which are the 3 lifts, right? So it's the snatch, the clean, and the jerk. There's 3 lifts. Those are written into the program every time. But I do plenty of stretching and extra strength training and a little bit of cardio. So the Olympic lifts are not the only thing I'm doing, although I'm sure there are plenty of Olympic weightlifters out there that maybe don't do as much extra work. It's very individual. But you have to do some stretching and some extra strengthening to even have the mobility to do the lifts.
I see. That makes sense. And then the cardio, you do some cardio with that, or on, what's that?
Yeah, so I used to be like a cardio addict, right? I used to run marathons and do all that crazy stuff. Now I do cardio more for my brain and maybe heart health rather than, for any other reason.
Is that running?
I don't run anymore. No, I've suffered enough damage.
So you use the elliptical machine or swim? What's your cardio?
No, I go hiking mostly. Yeah, I go hiking. I go hiking with friends, so it's not just exercise time, it's also my social time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so your workout, is that 4 times a week, or?
When I started with just 2 times a week because I was so worried about my mobility issues and my previous injuries. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get myself into a pickle here. But it was fine. And so then I think 2 months later, I increased it to 3 times a week. And just this month, I'm starting 4 times a week.
Great. And I'm assuming you're working with a coach.
Yeah, I have a wonderful coach. Yeah, I have a wonderful coach. It's a wonderful gym. It's Bassa Gym in Baltimore. I mean, everybody at the gym is just so encouraging and so helpful. I couldn't ask for a better space to be in.
That's great. And so your upcoming competition is when?
It's on Halloween.
Oh, nice. So it's right around the corner.
Yeah. So I'm supposed to wear a costume, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I asked my coach if I could just like have a steak in my mouth as I'm lifting. Apparently that's not allowed.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Do you eat before lift?
I don't, sometimes I guess if I'm hungry, but I don't make it a point to eat before I lift. Yeah.
Where can people find you? I mean, I know your Instagram handle. If you can talk about other places or what your handle is, where people can find you, follow you.
So right now I'm on just on Instagram, and it's Maria Runs on Keto. But you know, I also work in an integrative health practice, so they can find me there, and that's in integrative health practices in Ellicott City in Maryland. I'm currently not on Facebook. So I'm just doing Instagram for now. And, you know, I'm working on getting my website together, but there's just so much going on that I haven't had time.
Oh gosh, what else do I want to be sure that we include? You don't have children, I don't think. You would have talked about them.
No, I don't. I have a very large dog. His name is Henry. He's 115 pounds. He's a bloodhound.
Oh, a bloodhound. That's awesome. I think you recently lost an old dog.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I lost my little Jeff. Yeah, he was an amazing dog, but he was 14 years old, and he developed cancer. And, you know, looking back on things, I kind of blame the kibble. You know, I wonder if I fed my dogs raw meat from the beginning, if they would be healthier. But
yeah, unfortunately, death is part of this.
Right. I mean, it's no guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's 14.
He was 14 and he had a wonderful life.
Yeah. I like the picture of him that you posted. Yeah. So let me ask you, do you join MeetRx? I mean, do you join in on some of the...
Yeah, I usually join the noon meetings, and I joined your cooking class one time and I really enjoyed it, but unfortunately I work during that time, so it's really hard for me. Yeah. So maybe you could change it to a weekend.
I've thought about maybe an evening class, but I thought, well, evening is just a 3-hour time difference from zone to zone. But yeah, maybe a weekend. Yeah, because a lot of people have said that it's just really right in the working time, working day. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah, I remember you.
Yeah, the MeetRx platform has been so wonderful. I've learned so much on it. And it feels good to be, like part of the community and doing this kind of together.
Yeah.
I don't feel like a freak. I mean, not that I'm okay being a freak. It's just, it helps to have this team of people.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch it grow and to grow together as a group, as a really large group in the carniverse. A lot of people in the carniverse.
Yeah.
And there's so many things now. There's MeetRx, which is awesome. I love his meme of Sean's meme of support is the best supplement for a carnivore diet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's also Facebook has some of those Facebook groups, so people can really get a lot of help. And there's a lot more women, I think, in the carnivores showing up with their own podcasts and stuff. So that's really interesting.
The community is definitely growing, and I'm so grateful for the people that did the work to put this information out into the space, because if it wasn't for ShawnBaker and Paul Saladino and so many others, I don't know where I would be. I would still be walking around bloated and tired and
yeah,
right.
Bloated and tired. Yeah. So what, I just want to ask you, one last question. What would you have to say to someone who's like thinking about trying a meat-based diet?
Wow, there's so much I would like to say. I would encourage them to, first of all, get support. I think MeterX is a really good platform for that. Ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid of red meat. I can't stress that enough. Chicken is not going to help you here. Like, I almost feel like red meat is the basis of the diet because it is so nutritionally dense. If you try to do it without, you might struggle. I would encourage people to eat nose to tail, even if that means, taking liver pills rather than eating liver. Don't forget your salt. And if you have sleep problems, it doesn't matter what diet you try, you're not going to have a good time. And for some people, I think, diet can help them sleep better. But for others, diet alone doesn't resolve sleep issues. So, sleep and food go hand in hand. You can't separate them. Getting proper rest is very, very important.
Yeah, good advice. Very good advice. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation, for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been really fun.
Yeah. So, carny on.
Carny on.
Carny on. Yeah. And keep lifting. Oh, I love watching you lift. For those of you who haven't seen her lift, you have to check out her Instagram page. She shares her lifts on there. They're great. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, bro.